Here we are, Richmond Mill Lake, outside Laurel Hill, North Carolina. I'm with friend Jim Morgan. We're headed out to see if we can find some fish. You know, 20 years ago, 25 years ago, people just dug a hole, it rained, they added some fish, maybe gone and bought some Purina catfish chow and fed those babies till they grew up. 4 or 5 years later, they started over. Well, fast forward 25 years, not like that now. People actually have feeding programs. They do really interesting things with different kinds of feeders. Here at Richmond Mill Lake, this lake was built in 1835 to harness water energy power to turn grist mills back then, and then textile mills. As a matter of fact, Jim is a 5th generation Morgan, and he's the president of the Morgan Company. They started a new program here called the Kingfisher Society. It's a business designed to entertain clients, and Jim will tell you about that in a minute. The question I've got for Jim is, what in the world do you do with a lake that's like 140 years old and you turn it into a premier fishing lake, Jim?
Well, Bob, it's got a lot of history, and it's a very charming lake. It's a very beautiful lake. You know, you think back 1835, the next year after that, Davy Crockett was killed in the Alamo, and Texas became a state. So that's how long the lake's been here. So it's got a lot of history, but the fishing was never that great. I had a little club when I was a kid called the Kingfisher Club, and it was just me and a few friends of ours, and we fished a lot, and every once in a while we caught a fish, and every once in a while somebody would catch a really big bass, but it was not very productive fishing most of the time. What's great about a fishing program on a lake like this with acid water and a lot of flow, you can't fertilize it, so you can't do the programs most people do. A feeding program allows you to nurture the fish just like a bird feeder in your backyard nurtures the birds that come into your backyard. Feeding programs nurture the fish, allow them to grow and supplements nature just the way you would supplement nature in your backyard with a bird feeder.
You know, Jim, it's fascinating to see what you've done out here and what nature's done. I understand now you have a business that you've set up. What's that business about?
I felt like there was something magical about the water. There's something spiritual about this place that allowed people to break down barriers. So when we came up with this business, we didn't just want it to be a fishing lake. We wanted it to be a transformational business where relationships were deepened and nurtured, either that's business relationships or friendships or families. And so that's what we felt like we could do with this lake. It's beautiful, it's 120 acres. And what we do, since my family are all jazz musicians, is we have this wilderness fishing with great bass fishing, and then when they come off the lake, we have fine dining and live jazz in the lodge. And people love that combination.
You know, the feeding program here at Richmond Mill Lake, we've got 3 different kinds of feeders, and we feed 3 different sizes of feed. This is a scatter feeder designed to throw the larger pellets for the feed-trained largemouth bass in this lake, and they just tear it up when it goes off. Behind me sit some small vibratory feeders. Their job is to feed little bitty fish, little bitty pellets. The feeder shakes, vibrates, drops tiny little pellets into the water, which feed the smallest fish, which are the bait fish to feed the bigger fish. Now compare that to the scatter feeders that throw out the larger pellets to feed the biggest fish, and the directional feeders which feed the medium-sized fish. You see the slot on the front of it? It dispenses feed in a straight line up to 40 feet out in the middle of a pond. That's a feeding program. Holy cow, what are you doing? You catch a bass?
I'm sorry to interrupt.
Bring it in, let's look at it. You want to talk about the end result of a feeding program? Folks, here it is right here. It's happening here. It can sure happen with you.
Ugh.
Look at that bass. That is a well-fed feed program largemouth bass.
Yeehaw! He looks kind of like me and you.